This princess should have stayed in the academy a while longer. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob. I'm the Cowhat Librarian. And tonight's book is one I was excited about. Now, before I get to it, years back I had an idea for a story I wanted to tell. A children's book I wanted to write about a bunch of girls who had to train to become princesses, and I thought, well, they could go off to a school, maybe an academy, and I could call it Princess Academy because that sounds really, really cool. And I found out that Shannon Hale had already had this idea. Now, there are some differences, of course. I did not think up the exact book she did, but the basic premise and the title and enough things were similar that I dropped the idea of pursuing that book for the time. But I did read Princess Academy and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the story of Miri and the other girls from Mount Eskel and their efforts at the academy and their attempt to make their lives better for everyone, regardless of the outcome of the academy itself. And I read the sequel and I enjoyed it. And I tried reading the third book, but it didn't stick with me, but that's okay. Then my daughters and I read it together, each taking turns reading a few pages in a chapter, and made our way through most of the book before they decided to finish reading it on their own. So when a graphic novel version was announced, I was thrilled. I put a hold on it in my library system as soon as I could, and it came in a few weeks ago. And it is Princess Academy, the graphic novel by Shannon Hale and illustrated by Victoria Ying. As our story starts, Miri is a teen girl who lives on Mount Eskel, a place whose only notable crop, export, whatever, is linder, a special type of rock that's only mined on Mount Eskel. Their village is full of people who work in the quarry and mine and polish the stone and get it ready for traders who come a few times a year, who trade them the other things they need to live. Because they can't grow much in the way of crops on Mount Eskel, they can't raise much in the way of animals other than a few goats, and so they rely on this trading to make ends meet. One year the traders come and Miri goes to bargain with them because she's the only member of her family and one of the few people in the village who does not work in the quarry under any circumstances. Her dad won't let her. And she tries to bargain with the traders, and they are barely given enough food to make it through the winter, if that. The traders also come with worse news, though. The chief delegate of the country that Mount Eskel is part of has come to announce that the prince of their kingdom is old enough that he should be married, and the kingdom's priests have determined that his wife will come from Mount Eskel. Now, normally when they pick a province or area of this country, there are noble women already there who are already well trained in matters of the court and could be conceivably expected to step into the role of being a princess for their kingdom. But Mount Eskel isn't like that. They don't have any nobles. They don't have anyone who could wear a fancy gown and talk to a prince and arrange important diplomatic matters. None of that. So the kingdom has to do what it does in these circumstances. Set up a princess academy, a school devoted to teaching girls of the right age, in this case girls aged 12 to just younger than the prince, how to be proper ladies, and the finer points of etiquette and court and conversation and so on. Above and beyond the basic reading and writing skills none of them have had a chance to learn on Mount Eskel. The villagers are told that the girls will be coming to do this, and there are soldiers to make sure it happens. So Miri and other girls from the village are forced to attend this academy, and they're met by their tutor, Olana, who has the, as she sees it, objectionable job of trying to turn them into young ladies of refinement. And so they begin to learn their lessons. They learn their letters. They learn how to read and write and have polite conversations and how to negotiate and how to dance and all these things. And through the course of it, Miri butts heads with Alana a bit because she's not impressed with her and isn't happy with her priorities. She butts heads with Qatar, another girl there who is determined to leave the mountain behind and to be the prince's bride. And she gradually makes friends with Britta, a girl who had previously lived in the lowlands of their country in one of the more populated areas, but recently moved to Mount Eskell because her family had died and she had distant relatives there. So she feels like a bit of an outsider among the girls who were born and raised on Mount Eskell. As the story continues, they continue learning, and they learn things that could potentially make their lives better, including the real value of the linder that they're mining on that mountain, and what it means to the lowlanders who trade for it, because it's something that's used to build royal palaces and the like, and is worth far more than the pittance that the people of Mount Eskell are getting from the traders. And the story continues from there. Now, as a story, Princess Academy is wonderful. The original novel is a true classic, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And if you've never read the original, and you have family members who are more inclined to reach for a graphic novel than a chapter book, this is not a bad way to introduce them to the story. However, there are spoilers ahead because I have to talk about the deal breakers. Now, I've been in this game long enough to know that graphic novel adaptations always have compromises. There are things cut, there are things padded, there are things that are left as thoughts in chapter book form that have to be spelled out in the more visual format of a graphic novel. There are times where the art style doesn't match with the story well. There are all sorts of compromises that are made. And for the most part, I've accepted that those are things that happen. The art style here, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The village of Mount Eskell is not how I imagined it from reading the book, but that's fine. That's an artistic interpretation versus my own interpretation, and they're not always going to be in agreement. However, I was less happy that they represented Qatar as the seemingly only non-white girl attending the academy. Now, on the plus side, she was one of the most driven people there and really wanted to succeed and make something of herself and leave Mount Eskell behind. Those were the positive points. However, Qatar is also flat out mean and rude and serves as the antagonist for a chunk of the book, or one of the antagonists at any rate, and it just felt a little unfair shifting all of that to the one non-white girl in the book. Couldn't they have had a little more variety in the girls at the academy? I didn't think it was necessary to do that. Another change was that they included a lot of songs in this particular version of the story, usually at the front of chapters and drawn into the pictures as sort of a vibey thing. And while the tone of them was fine, the rhythm was not. I had a really hard time finding a rhythm to sing them to my kids when I was reading this with them. I could not find a rhythm to sing them properly. And whether I was trying for something more rhythmic or trying to fit it to sort of a tip-tap rhythm that you might expect choreo workers to use, I couldn't do it. And maybe it's me, but I had a really hard time believing these were songs that were commonly sung by that village, other than their content. Okay, last but not least, the original Princess Academy is a really, really great story about girls finding their own power and advocating for themselves and fighting on behalf of their communities. And it is a wonderfully told version of that. From Miri growing up as a girl who can't read and write, whose family is living hand to mouth, and her learning these skills and advocating on behalf of her family and arguing with the traders and eventually delivering a better life for her people. And none of that appears here. She learns about the value of Linda and heads back to the traders, and they blow her off. And she can't make a change, even though all they'd have to do is not trade and take some of the blocks down the mountain themselves. Instead, she has to rely on a threat to the traders that, well, one of them's going to marry the prince and he'll sort you out. And it doesn't even change anything right then and there. They're left to rely on the prince at the end of the story and making it clear to him that the traders are being jerks and that he has to deal with it. That is so far off the message of the original story that I was appalled to see it. Miri and the other girls learned something at this academy. They became better versions of themselves who were better informed about the world and could make real change in their lives. And this version of the story stripped it all out. It's still fine. It's not a total loss. It's just, in the course of making this adaptation, they took a story that was a 10 out of 10 story. And adaptation stuff aside, the medium change aside, they took just the core story down to a 6 out of 10. And it is a shame. Princess Academy deserved better. Still, I did like it. The art style's fine. And as I said before, it makes this more accessible to young readers who might be more interested in a graphic novel version. And it's not a bad way to introduce them to the story. But I highly recommend following up with the real story. It's on a whole nother level compared to this version. Still, go borrow it from your public library. While I'm on that topic, if you use and appreciate the services offered by your public library, why not take just 1 minute and tell the powers that be exactly that? Tell your mayor, tell your council member, tell your MP or MLA that you use and appreciate the services offered by your public library. We're at a time where some public libraries are having trouble finding sustainable funding to continue improving the materials, programs, and services they offer. And a few good words in the right ears might make a world of difference. Now, if by some chance you're a library staff member, don't forget, watching my videos counts as professional development time. With that, thanks for listening to me royally whine about this one. By all means, please like, please subscribe, please ignore my cats who are running everywhere, and please check back to see what else I have to talk about from the CowHat Library. Thank you. Bye now.